I think it's been surprising from several points of view. One is the fact that it's happening at all. This is a very unexpected move on the part of Ukraine. But also, yes, the fact that the border between Russia and Ukraine was so lightly defended on the Russian side. I think it reveals the fact that Russia has really taken basically all of the forces it has and put them in Ukraine, and they've left, their own territory really very vulnerable to this kind of an incursion.
Well, Moscow was very much caught by surprise. How do you think it will contain the offensive, or what attempts will it make?
So I think Russia will need to find some forces from somewhere to send to this region to try and push the Ukrainians out again. And really, it looks as though their best bet would be to take forces from the conflict zone in Ukraine itself. And this may be indeed what Zelensky is hoping that they will do. It will relieve pressure on the fighting in Ukraine and divert some of those forces to try and take back this territory in Russia. Because one of the things that the incursion has really revealed is the threadbare nature of Russia's manpower situation, how they're really struggling, to get and to retain soldiers to fight in this war, and it's really left their home defences very much depleted.
Can you give us a sense of this area and why Ukraine has chosen to carry out its offensive in the western Kursk region?
Sure. So our indications are that Ukrainian military intelligence has been scoping out the border areas between Ukraine and Russia recently and looking for sort of weak points, places that are less well defended, where Ukraine could have the opportunity to shift the war, to open up another front and to really change the dynamics. And it seems that this is an area which has been identified as having particularly weak security, which clearly it did, because they were able to roll across the border very easily. And also, of course, this may or may not have been a consideration, but the name Kursk, the region, also is the name of the submarine Kursk, which, about 25 years ago, disastrously had an explosion on board and sank and killed all the submariners while Putin was busy refusing all offers of international aid. So Kursk in August has a certain resonance in Russia and will bring to mind the memories of this very tragic and also embarrassing episode, which happened quite early in Putin's reign.
How far do you think Ukraine can and will go into Russian territory?
Now, this is a really good question, and we don't really know what Ukraine's intentions are. We don't know whether this is simply meant to be a little bit of a shock to Russia, or whether they really want to take and seriously hold territory for some period of time, possibly to give them a better bargaining position when it comes to any kind of ceasefire or peace treaty arrangements. So we honestly don't know. What we can say is that they don't seem to have stopped. They seem still to be pushing forward, but that the further they go from their own border, obviously the harder it's going to be for them to sustain the effort. They're going to need, fresh troops. They're going to need good supply lines. They're going to need good, air defense cover. They're going to need all the facilities that they will need to maintain themselves and even to move forward. So it's not going to be an easy task. It's going to be very challenging. So I think that's what we're looking to see, is how long can Ukraine sustain this, and really for what purpose? What are they going to do with this advance?
Do you think this is a significant turning point in Russia's invasion of Ukraine?
I think it is, because it definitely takes the war to Russia in a way that it really hasn't in the past. Now, even though Ukrainian forces have launched attacks on the Crimean Bridge, on targets in Crimea, even on targets using drones inside Russia, there hasn't been territory sort of taken in this way, where civilians in Russia have had to flee, where soldiers have been made prisoner, where the Ukrainians are really putting up their flags and claiming that they control this territory. So I think for those reasons alone, even if this proves to be a very brief incursion, it will mark an important point, an important turning point in the war.
Well, meanwhile, Kyiv and several other regions in Ukraine have come under a Russian drone and missile attack overnight. How damaging were these for Kyiv in its battle to defend itself?
Well, this is, I think, again, part of a bigger pattern that we've seen before, that when Russia suffers defeats on the battlefield or setbacks on the battlefield, they tend to target Ukrainian civilian facilities, cities, they tend to kill people. And this is, again, what we're seeing. So I think it's an ongoing process. It's not something which is new for the Ukrainians to experience. Unfortunately, they've been experiencing this for more than 2 years. It's something that they're prepared for, and I'm sure it's something that Zelensky and his military planners would have anticipated as part of a backlash. But Ukraine has been suffering this way, for more than 2 years anyway, even without going into Russian territory before last week. So I don't think so far it hasn't proved to be a large sort of uptick in the way that Russia is waging the war.
We've seen a major fire hit the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in a part of Ukraine controlled by Russian forces. What are the concerns here?
Well, I think ever since Russia has taken control of that power plant, there have been concerns about safety and concerns about whether the power plant is being looked after properly, whether the people who work there are able to do their jobs, sufficiently. And so I think anything around this power plant, any signs of conflict or the fire that you mentioned, always raise concerns. Will there be safety issues here? But what it looks like from what we can tell is something flammable placed there. So whether this was some sort of a provocation on the part of the Russian forces to send a signal to the Ukrainians, don't mess with us. We have your power plant. That seems plausible. But certainly, any time the power plant is threatened in any way, that raises concerns, of course.
Dr. Jenny Mothers, thank you for joining us on The World Tonight.
Thank you.